China, the elephant in the room. So China has this policy going on. It's called Made in China 2025. It's basically a focus that says we want Chinese products, we want to only use Chinese products, and we want to not bring in products or services or goods from other countries. Then as you look at President Xi, there's a couple of things to remember there too. Interesting slide here. I heard Wendong Zhang, who is a professor at Iowa State, a Chinese professor, came to the US, and he was talking a lot about China's rhetoric. So China, President Xi, once you're elected in China, you're the president for life. So how much longer will President Xi be the president? Until he is sick, until he passes away. So what does that do then on the political scene internationally? It changes the game. We have elections every 4 years. Maybe about 2 of those years, a year and a half or 2 years of those years, if a president is re-electing or rerunning, is spent campaigning. How is he focusing on our issues if he's taking a lot of his time or she's taking a lot of her time to focus on campaigns? Then you look at China, and they have this president who is president for life. He doesn't have to worry about re-elections or getting people to vote for him or her. So it creates a different kind of stability for the Chinese economy. Then you look at, so Made in China 2025, and then they also have this slogan, COE of China, commander of everything. They are the head of state, and they are the head of the world in the Chinese people's eyes. The Chinese media censors what they're saying. I'm sure for those of you that have been to China, you know you can't log into your email or Facebook or Twitter or Instagram. It's blocked, it's censored. So what's the Chinese media saying? Well, they're saying the best and brightest things about their economy, about President Xi. They're not probably saying what's going on realistically with the trade war. But since the trade war has started, since about March, the Chinese economy has fell 25 to 30%, largely due to the impacts of trade with the United States. So not only are we seeing the Made in China 2025, we're seeing that President Xi is the commander of everything. We're also seeing these tariffs. We have $200 billion in tariffs put on ag products. Coming out of the G20 summit, we at least saw President Trump say that next round of tariffs, which was going to be implemented January 1st, we're going to push those off. We're going to wait. Great. Because if he would have put those in effect, basically all of the goods coming from China that we import every year, not just ag, it's about $505 billion, we're going to see tariffs on basically all of those $505 billion of products. Tariffs on all of that product. So now we're pushing that off a little bit further into the future. Coming out of the G20 summit, as I mentioned, we saw China and President Trump have what President Trump called a great and victorious meeting, but we really haven't seen or didn't see confirmation from the Chinese and from Chinese media up until basically this week. They were waiting. I don't know why, but they were waiting to make those announcements. We didn't see a joint press conference come. The reasoning was told that it was because of Senior President Bush's passing. But we didn't see that press conference to solidify the news that President Trump had announced and President Trump had tweeted. So we got China to come out. President Trump said, China is going to buy a substantial amount of ag products. Great, the soybean markets rallied. Did we see a timeline for when those products were going to start exporting? No. Did we get a quantifiable amount of what substantial means? No. So again, the markets, the soybean markets especially, rallied on this news, this quick story in the markets, and pulled the other commodities with it, grains specifically, pulled those grains up with it. But how much stability then does that create for the markets, for the soybean markets? So just for a frame of reference, 2017, China imported $19.6 billion in ag products. It's a pretty big number. What do we think is going to happen for 2018 when those numbers come out at the beginning of the 2019 year here? Are they going to be the same story? I doubt it. However, we did have good news. As I mentioned earlier, I teased earlier, the wireframes today came out with the first purchase of U.S. soybeans since the G20 summit. Insider trading trickled through the markets today that China bought, for the first time, 500,000 tons of U.S. soybeans. I want to get the number right. It was $180 million was that value today that came out. I didn't check where the markets closed for today, if anyone wants to do that here in a couple of minutes, but last I checked, we were trading up 13, 14, 15 cents on the day on that news. Okay, so we're now seeing 10 days into the G20 summit meeting, 10 days later, we finally see some positive news. We finally see some positive confirmation that China is doing what they say they're going to do. So what now? Do they continue buying that? In a report a couple of days ago, Bloomberg reported that China was gearing up to buy more U.S. soybeans. They said anywhere from 5 to 8 million tons here over the next couple of days, weeks, months, don't know. We can't confirm or deny that, but they said Chinese trade officials, Chinese top officials were gearing up for more soybean and more ag product imports, specifically soybeans. So I think we're slowly starting to see that kind of eke its way through now. We've still got to have a couple of rounds of trade discussions, obviously. It's nothing set in stone. We don't even have a soft framework from either the White House Trade Representative's Office or China. We still don't really know what a trade agreement will look like with them, but we're finally starting to see some things come to fruition. However, one other quick thing to note is kind of this 90-day window. For those of you that pay attention to the news a lot, you might have heard of it. Coming out of the G20 summit, we have 90 days basically to see a hard and fast deal. So March 1st is our deadline. This is according to Robert Lighthizer, our U.S. trade representative. He said, March 1st is our deadline. We need to have a hard deal in place with China. If we don't, those tariffs are coming around the corner. President Trump has said that. Those tariffs are coming if we don't see that trade deal in place by March 1st. So that surpasses that window of soybean exports. We're missing it, end of January, beginning of February. We're missing that window, but maybe today's purchase is a sign of things to come, a token of good faith, an olive branch, if you will. Maybe not.